All right, let's create a few variables or play with variables in Python. Uh, if you remember from the lecture, to make a variable, we simply need to come up with a name that is descriptive and assign it with the assignment operator here, a value. And then we can, just have it output like so. Cool. So there's a new variable. What we can also do is change its type, right? We can also say that my variable is now a string. Oops. Let's add this here. My variable, yeah, it contains string. If I put something else in here, last test, right? That's what I get. Great. If I print these things, it actually gives dereferences the value, so it plots the actual value here. Okay, but let's get rid of this piece here. Let's re-execute that and try that trick that I showed you in class. Ah, okay, as I said, it uses the old value of my variable, my var, here, adds one to it, and stuffs the new value into the same old box. Now, who knows what's going to happen if we execute that code cell again? Is it going to be 13 again? No, it is 14 now because notebooks remember the variable name. That is something to please keep in mind as you're playing around with notebooks, that if you're re-executing a cell, you're not starting from the old values. You're starting from the endpoint at the end of the cell that was the state of variables, etc. So if I do this again, I'm now at 15, 16, 17, you get the point. But if I execute this, and now I execute this cell again, back to 13, right? Because we've reset the value of my var up here, and we start incrementing it again and again. Does that make sense? Perhaps a little bit better use is, or to point out a little bit better the use of variables. Let's try something very simple here. Let's say that we have a length of 12, and let's just say this is unit meters. We have a width of 4, same unit. And we have a height of, I don't know, 5 unit is meters. What I'm adding here at the end are comments using the octothorpe hash sign, whatever you want to call it. This means this text is not being, or anything that comes after the symbol is not being interpreted by the interpreter. Okay, so now we can calculate the volume, right? The volume is length times width times height. Okay, what's the unit of this? Probably cubic meters, right? Cool. So now we'll do a little fancier print statement here. We can just say print L is this, and say the width is this, and I don't really need those semicolons here, and the height is this. We close this and just add length. Oh no, we've got to do this length, width, and height. And we can print the volume. Let's make that also something volume. Cool. So apart from some strange formatting here, and we probably want to add units. So let's just do this here because we do have the time. Meters cubed. Okay, so now it looks a little bit nicer. What have I done? This is a fancier print statement. Basically, there's some formatting happening in here. We have the string that you can see down here, but then there's this funky symbol. We'll talk about those in more detail later. But basically, it's a placeholder for which the print statement expects a variable back here. It dereferences, gets the value, replaces it here, expects an integer. And the same up here. Here we give it a list of 3 values because we have 3 things in here. Don't worry about the details of this right now, because what I really want to show you is the value of variables, where we can now double the width in one location, and the width shows up correctly here and is being used correctly in the calculation, right? So the point of variables often is that you have one place where you give actual values to them, and then you recalculate them, or you use these values in various different pieces of code without having to change the value, right? I would get the same result here if I change the height for the actual value of the height, but things would get out of sync now if I have the variable height, but I'm using the constant here and I'm not changing that back to 8 too. So that's why we use variables, so we do not have to change the values in the code in a dozen locations.